If you have been scared to ask your spouse to attend the workshop with you because you're afraid that they will say no, then let me let you in on a little secret. They probably will. They are more than likely going to say no the first time that you ask them, and that's okay. In this video, I'm going to share what you can do to ensure that you ask your spouse to attend in the best way possible. You see, most people are resistant to change. Whether it's starting a new diet or workout plan or even going to individual therapy, many times when we as humans are presented with an opportunity to do something that may lead to change, we resist. You've done it, I've done it, we've all done it. And going to a 3-day marriage weekend with people that your spouse does not know and presenters that your spouse has never heard from a company that your spouse doesn't have any relationship with, it's a lot to ask. Even couples in good relationships would have some struggles getting their spouse to say yes to that. So please understand that it is normal and it is okay if your spouse says no at first. Don't be scared of the no, because guess what? You're going to ask your spouse more than once. And the next time you ask is going to be so much easier than the first time. Here are the keys to keep in mind when you're asking your spouse. Here's the first one. You need to focus on what matters to your spouse, not to you. If your spouse doesn't want to save the marriage, don't talk about saving the marriage. If you start telling your spouse about how you found this awesome company online and they work with people to get past affairs and control issues, and that they're going to tell your spouse about everything that they need to change and make the marriage work, your spouse is going to say no. Why? Because none of that matters to your spouse. So ask yourself these questions. Number 1, why is our marriage in trouble right now? Or why does my spouse want out of the marriage? Maybe it's in trouble because you and your spouse have been fighting all the time for years. And your spouse doesn't even want to have a conversation with you because every time she tries, it just ends up in a fight. She's pulled away, you're living like roommates, and you don't even like being around each other. Maybe she hasn't mentioned wanting out, but clearly things aren't good. In this case, your marriage would be in trouble because the two of you aren't able to communicate. And instead of communicating, you're fighting. She probably feels disrespected. Maybe she doesn't feel listened to, and she's done trying to figure out how to talk to you. Or another situation, maybe your spouse is involved in an affair and wants out because they want to be with their affair partner. In each of these cases, and there are many more, what matters to your spouse would be different. This leads to the second question. What does matter to your spouse? For the first example, the wife wants to feel respected, heard, and able to communicate without fighting all the time. For the second example, it might be that they want a quick divorce because to them what matters is being with their affair partner. Knowing the answer to these questions and trying to see from your spouse's point of view of what would benefit them and what they would see the benefit of in coming to this workshop will help you when it comes time to ask them to go. So as you are thinking about the things in these questions, maybe it's even that what matters to your spouse is continuing to be a good parent, no matter what happens to your marriage going forward. These are good things to note and to keep in mind. But as you go to approach your spouse, keep those things in mind and try and follow the following. Here's the first thing. Put your spouse at ease. Before you ask your spouse, you want to make sure that both of you are in a good headspace and a good physical space. The time of day matters, whether or not it's been a good day matters. Even the place that you are in needs to be conducive of relaxation. I'm not talking about a spa, but you might not want to do it in your bedroom if your bedroom is associated with memories of fighting all the time. You don't have to make this a big deal, but just consider it. Don't do it after a fight or even the day after a fight, and especially not in the middle of a fight. Your spouse will be more at ease if you are at ease. If you can be confident in what you are saying and not go into the conversation nervous, it's going to help the conversation go better. Instead of jumping right into asking, ask your spouse how their day has been, what's been going on with them if you can, which will also help you gauge whether or not this is a good time to ask. Here's the second thing. Ask your spouse to attend. With the questions above in mind, ask your spouse to attend the workshop. You may want to start by saying something like this. Hey, I know that we've had a lot of struggles communicating in the past, and I have done some things that have been really disrespectful and hurtful towards you. I don't want to do those things anymore. And I've found a conference that I think would really help us learn how to communicate better, stop fighting so much, and would really get us to hopefully rebuild our relationship. Would you be willing to look this over? Or you may want to say, I know that you're wanting this divorce to happen as soon as possible. And you know that I would love to make our marriage work. But I would really appreciate if, out of respect for me, we could attend this conference together so it would give us clarity, direction, the ability to at least be able to co-parent going forward, and maybe even closure as we move forward. You can also ask your spouse to go simply for the sake of your kids. You want to keep the ask short. There's no need to ramble on and on or make the conversation longer than it needs to be. You just need to ask them to go. The third thing to be aware of is you need to help explain and overcome objections. At this point, your spouse may just flat say no, and that's okay. If that happens, just move on in the conversation. Don't keep talking about it. You can move on to the next point. But it could be that your spouse says, "What's the workshop about?" Dr. Beam has created a video that explains everything about our workshop to a spouse who doesn't want to attend. That is the perfect video to share with your husband or your wife if they are hesitant, unsure, or even if they're unwilling. In fact, asking your spouse to just watch the video may be the best thing to ask them before you even ask them to attend the workshop with you. But you need to be prepared for the follow-up questions. If they ask what the workshop is like, if they say they don't want to go to some emotional, mushy-gushy workshop, if they ask where it is, then not only do you need to be prepared to answer the questions, but you should already know your plan to overcome those objections. For example, your spouse may ask where it is. Then they may say that they can't get off work or who's going to take care of the kids. If you can respond by saying, "I've already talked to my parents," without sharing any details of what we're doing, and they are willing to watch the kids, then you've already made it easier because you've already overcome one of those objections that your spouse might have questions about. For the cost, if that's an objection to them, then you can mention how you will take care of it or give ideas on how you would plan on paying for it, different things like that. The biggest questions that your spouse will have will more likely have to do with what happens at our workshop. Again, watch that video that Dr. Joe Beam did, but also feel free to ask all of your questions to your client relations rep. In fact, you can also have your spouse speak with your client relations representative as well. They are willing to answer any and all questions. And here's the fourth thing. Celebrate the no. I know it sounds cheesy, but celebrate the no. Why? Because it shows that you took initiative and you asked. And that is all that you can do right now. So go do something to reward yourself. Get a massage. Go get ice cream. Go for a hike. Be proud that you did the hard thing. You came out alive and it wasn't so bad. And now you can make a plan to do the fifth thing. Ask again. You can always ask again. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but you can continue to bring up the workshop in non-pushy ways at appropriate times for months. It shows that this is important to you, and the repetition from you will also normalize the thought of it to your spouse. Please don't give up after 1, 2, or even 3 no's. Don't be pushy or annoying, but don't give up. And like the one girl, she asked her husband every week for 10 months. He finally agreed to go just to get her off his back. They saved their marriage, and they are now expecting their 3rd child. Even if you can't get your spouse to agree to go to the workshop, you can start doing things now for you to fix your relationship. Things that will also hopefully get your spouse to agree to go to the workshop a little later. Our coaching and our online courses are perfect for this. You don't have to wait for your spouse to be ready to do something in order for you to take action and start doing something now. A lot of times, that just helps the process go even better. Your spouse will begin to see changes in you, which will make them more open and amicable to agree to do something with you to work on your relationship. You're not as hopeless as it may seem in this, and we are here to help you in every step of this process, however we can, the best we can.